What's up, everybody, and welcome to Read the Bible with me, Stan Jr. Today we're looking at chapter 2 of the book of Nehemiah. And as always, it's a pleasure to share in the truth of the Word of God with you every day and to read the Bible every day. As you know, if you're new here, go ahead and click the subscribe button and turn on your notification bell. That helps us, me and you, stay connected, and it helps me remind you to read that Bible every day at 7 a.m. We post a new video every day. So if you are a Bible Club member, first let me thank you for your generous and consistent donation to this ministry. We use a portion of what you give, of course, to send Bibles like this around the world to persecuted Christians, and just to help persecuted Christians all the way around, not just sending Bibles, but just providing for food for them if they need it, shelter if they need it. We help, and we also send missionaries out around the world every month with your donation. So I am so very excited to be in communion and fellowship with you. And so as we look at Nehemiah chapter 2, let the Lord speak to you as we read his words. In the month of Nisan, in the 20th year of King Artaxerxes, when wine was before him, I took up the wine and gave it to the king. Now I had not been sad in his presence. And the king said to me, "Why is your face sad, seeing you are not sick?" "This is nothing but sadness of the heart." Then I was very much afraid. I said to the king, "Let the king live forever. Why should not my face be sad when the city, the place of my father's graves, lies in ruins, and its gates have been destroyed by fire?" The king said to me, "What are you requesting?" So I prayed to the God of heaven, and I said to the king, "If it pleases the king, and if your servant has found favor in your sight, that you send me to Judah, to the city of my father's graves, that I may rebuild it." So what is happening here? Ezra is in the presence of the king. Nehemiah is in the presence of the king. And Nehemiah, while being in the presence of the king notices that something is different about him. And he wasn't sad at that moment, but he said, "Your heart is sad. Something's on your heart." And he says, my people, my ancestors' people, and my father's people, they're all in ruins. The city's in ruins. And the king says, "What have I requested? What are you requesting of me?" And then Nehemiah prays to God first before he talks to the king and asks the king for a request. I think this is something that we all make a mistake in doing. We ask our boss or the person in charge of us before we ask God, or the person that manages us. We ask them before we ask God. And if it's something in our heart, we need to ask the Lord, how should I ask this, or should I ask? How can we learn how to walk more with God and be more aware of him? Well, by reading your word every single day, it raises your conscience of God. It raises your thoughts about God. You think about him more. And then when you come into a situation like this where a decision has to be made or a question has to be asked, you can ask the Lord quickly. It'll be your first mind. "Lord, what should I do in this case? What should I ask in this instance? How should I frame my words?" And he found favor in the sight of the king. So he prayed to the God of heaven, and he asked the king, "Can I go rebuild it?" And the king said to me, the queen sitting beside him, "How long will you be gone, and when will you return?" So it pleased the king to send me when I had given him a time. And I said to the king, if it pleases the king, let letters be given to me, to the governors of the province beyond the river, that they may let me pass through until I come to Judah. And a letter to Asaph, the keeper of the king's forest, that he may give me timber to make beams and for the gates and of the fortress of the temple, and for the wall of the city, and for the house that I shall occupy. And the king granted me what I asked, for the good hand of my God was upon me. He then again notices that the hand of God is on. When the favor of God is on you, you notice it and you stay humble and you go do and continue working in the mission that God has given you to complete. Then I came to the governors of the province beyond the river and gave them to the king's letters. Now the king had sent with me officers of the army and horsemen. But when Sanballat, the Horonite, and Tobiah, the Ammonite servant, heard this, it displeased them greatly that someone had come to seek the welfare of the people of Israel. So I went to Jerusalem and was there 3 days. Then I arose in the night, and a few men with me, and I told no one what my God had put in my heart to do for Jerusalem. You see that? When God gives you something, it's not for you to tell everybody all the time. Just do what he told you to do quietly and do it. You don't need a bunch of fame and a bunch of press and a bunch of, I'm trying to think of the word, a bunch of fanfare, there it is, around a celebration around you doing what God told you to do. You just go do what God told you to do. Who cares if no one else celebrates it? The Lord is happy. Aren't you happy that God is happy about it? If you're doing what God told you to do, you need to just enjoy that God told you to do it and that you're fulfilling the mission and purpose of God in your life for his glory. And so I went to Jerusalem and was there 3 days. Then I arose in the night and a few men, he says. And I rode, verse 12, he says, then I rose at night and I and a few men with me. I told no one what God had put in my heart to do for Jerusalem. There was no animal with me but the one on which I rode. I went out by night by the valley gate to the dragon spring, and to the dung gate, and I inspected the walls of Jerusalem that were broken down, and its gates had been destroyed by fire. Then I went onto the fountain gate, into the king's pool, but there was no room for an animal that was under me to pass. Then I went up in the night by the valley and inspected the wall, and I turned back and entered by the valley gate and returned. And the officials did not know where I had gone or what I was doing. And I had not yet told the Jews, the priests, the nobles of the officials, and the rest who were to do the work. Then I said to them, you see the trouble we are in, how Jerusalem lies in ruins, with its gates burned? Come, let us build the wall of Jerusalem, that we may no longer suffer derision. And I told them of the hand of my God that had been upon me for good, and also of the words that the king had spoken to me, and they said, let us rise up and build. So they strengthened their hands for the good work. But when Sanballat and Horonite and Tobiah, the Ammonite, servant of Geshem, the Arab, heard of it, they jeered at us and despised us and said, what is this thing that you are doing? Are you rebelling against the king? Then I replied to them, the God of heaven will make us prosper, and we his servants will arise and build, but you have no portion or right to claim in Jerusalem. And so the first thing that's going to happen when you get ready to do what God told you to do, people are going to accuse you of wrongdoing. They're going to say what you're doing is wrong. If you're truly doing something for God, they're going to say what you're doing, you shouldn't be doing. They're going to start to cast doubts and start rumors about you and start to create lies. And when you're doing something for God, everything doesn't always go right, or the best way it could go, right? Sometimes all hell breaks loose when you start to do something for the Lord. So before we get into that, that's chapter 2 of the book of Nehemiah. Thank you for reading the Bible with me. If you'd like to become a Bible Club member and support this ministry with $10 a month gift every month, I would appreciate that if you would click the link in my description or simply ask for help in the comment section. And I'll be there to help you. I helped someone a week ago, and it was seamless. So if you'd like to become a patron, I would appreciate that. It really helps us do ministry. Thank you. Next time I see you, we'll be reading chapter 3 of the book of Nehemiah. God bless you. Peace.